hidden links and shared agendas. First of all, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalam ala Rasulullah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. My dear brothers and sisters, as we all know, Islamophobia has become a cancer in our society. But we should ask ourselves, did Islamophobia just happen by happenstance? Was it something that came out based on circumstances, or was there something more to this? Is there some other link that we may not know about, that we may not be thinking about, that we may not be challenging and combating? Inshallah, our distinguished guests today will talk to you about that. We'll talk to you about where Islamophobia has been cultivated, where it continues to rise, and inshallah ta'ala how we can combat that. Our first guest will be Attorney Uthman Atta. Attorney Atta he's a former attorney. He became much smarter and decided to stop being an attorney, I think. He is now the executive director of the Islamic Society of Milwaukee. He is somebody who has championed the Palestinian cause for many years, somebody who, in fact, I've learned a great deal from. So I'll, without further ado, ask Uthman to join us. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Munjid. I haven't given up the degree, I just gave up a little bit of the practice. Working with the Muslim community, it's supposed to be easier, I guess. For those who've worked with the Muslim community, that was supposed to be a joke, but it's okay. Assalamu alaikum to all of you. It's my honor to actually be here today, be here this year. After off because of COVID, it's my honor also to be on the stage with our brother and sister addressing this topic. I'm going to actually start off by just giving a little bit of background information, and I'll have our speakers who will talk about more of the current connections between the Zionist lobby and the Islamophobia industry. The topic is really about dehumanization, and Islamophobia includes the dehumanization of Muslims. And the dehumanization of Muslims and Palestinians is not something that has been new, and of course Arabs and many others. In fact, dehumanization has been a constant throughout many periods in history, and it has justified the most heinous crimes that have been committed in the history of mankind. Why is dehumanization practiced? I mean, why do people engage in dehumanization? Well, it's very easy. If you dehumanize someone, it makes it very, very easy to do anything to them. If you make them less than you are, you make them less than human, then it is very easy to take things from them. It's very easy to attack them. It's very easy to kill them. It's very easy to massacre them. It's very easy to actually commit an entire genocide against a population, because you are denying their humanity. You are saying that these individuals are less than you, and because they are less than you, you can do just about anything to them. Dehumanization has been practiced by many regimes and empires. If you look at the British and the French during the era of colonialism, what they did. Look what for example, the French did in Algeria, just one of the countries, where they dehumanized the people. They were able to massacre them. They tried to elevate their own culture and civilization and to put down others. And that allowed them to basically try to destroy them, to kill them in large numbers. One of the things I do remember, even just keeping with this, the French and their invasion of Algeria, I know that when this whole issue of ISIS came up and people were using ISIS and their brutality to try to attack Islam and Muslims and to denigrate our faith, and they would focus on the beheadings and things like that and say, oh, look at Muslims are so uncivilized in what they do and their practices. And of course, they forgot about their history, which is not so long ago. And I don't know how many of you have seen where the French actually, after they had killed a number of Algerian freedom fighters, mujahideen, whatever you want to refer to them as, they actually commissioned a stamp, which showed on the stamp was a photo of a wall, a short wall like Sinsile, and they had the heads of these mujahideen posted on it. And they commissioned a stamp, that you use to mail letters and so forth. And that was not considered as being brutal, or that was not considered as being something that was uncivilized. So they did it, they were able to engage in these things, and then after a short few years, they would forget about it and try to criticize other groups, which they probably helped form, who were basically using some of their same tactics. In this country, of course, the greatest group that has experienced dehumanization has been the African American community. We know about the lynchings. And again, I don't know how many of you read about the history here in the United States, where it was kind of like a circus atmosphere. They would go out, it would be maybe on a Sunday, they would dress up nicely, so they could go lynch a human being. They would cut pieces of the flesh off, they would do terrible things. Again, because you dehumanize someone, it's very easy for you to do all kinds of terrible things to them. And again, this is something that goes back to what has been happening to the Palestinians and the Muslims. We continue, and this is about Islamophobia, we continue to be dehumanized, stereotyped, our religion attacked and disparaged in all kinds of ways. And yes, much of the anti-Muslim bigotry and hatred is coming from the same individuals who are very supportive of Israel and part of the Israeli lobby. And again, our other two speakers will be addressing that. But I just want to emphasize that this is not a new narrative. This is something that has been going on for many years. I usually go out to many places and I speak about Islam, about Palestine, about other things. And I could tell you that many of the middle-aged people, I'm not talking about now the younger, because you go to churches, you go to other places, you'll get a lot of middle-aged and older people. And their understanding and their narrative of what took place, what's going on with the Palestinians and the Israelis, oftentimes came from the media. And I'm not just talking about the news media, but I'm talking about the popular media. And a number of times, and I was actually surprised by it, but a number of times people had mentioned to me that, oh, well, I saw or read the book Exodus by Leon Uris. And, these are these brave David versus Goliath. The Muslims or the Arabs, the Palestinians, they were savages, they were backwards, they really had no principles. They were these terrible, terrible people. And that information basically left a very, very strong impression on the people. They had very few sources of information. It's not like now, which alhamdulillah, what we've heard in this conference, you heard so many things about with social media and what people are actually able to do. You don't have to rely on the media. But at that time, people relied on basically very few sources of information. And so you had this individual who first did Exodus, and he was commissioned by someone actually connected to the Israeli government to put this book together. And later on, he wrote another book called The Hajj, where the people in the story, the Muslims in the story were someone named Ibrahim and Ismail and Hajar, okay? Again, they were connecting it as another way of disparaging our particular religious, our faith, and our commitment to our faith. And again, the books were about how uncivilized Muslims are, how backwards they are, how everything that they have is something terrible, that they have never contributed anything positive to the world. And again, this is something that had a great influence on the people in this country. Even till today, we hear some of these same things, and I will just give you one example by former, I hate to say it, President Trump, where I don't know if you guys heard the story that he would give about about American General John Pershing. I don't know if anyone ever heard him make that, if you ever listened to his speeches, what the story was about. And again, it actually was connected to Islam and Muslims. No, one or two people maybe? Okay. So the story that he told, and this was at his rallies when he was going out, and we know what his attitude is toward Muslims and the negative attitude, but he would tell a story about how around the turn of the century, beginning of the 1900s, that the Americans were fighting in the Philippines, and that they were being attacked by a group of Muslims. And according to this fictional story, which he tried to relate as being true, he said that, and again, the reason I'm bringing it up too is that one of the individuals who actually wrote about this story even before 9/11 was Gideon Esra, who wrote it in the Israeli newspaper, Yediot Aharonot. So he actually told about the story, and it's repeated by Trump. Again, I'm not sure if he got it directly from an Israeli source or not. But according to the story, this general, and I don't have a whole lot of time left, according to the story, this general was told, how are we going to stop these Muslims from attacking in the Philippines? And so the story was that they took a whole bunch of bullets and dipped them in pig's blood, and that they captured 50 Muslims, and they shot them with these bullets that were soaked in pig's blood. And again, this is what he's telling a group of Americans who are coming to support him, okay? People who are clearly ignorant about Islam and Muslims. So he told them, according to the story, that all of these people, the Muslims believe that if you die with any pig's blood and a bullet or whatever, you're gonna go directly to hell, okay? And so he said that they were gonna go to hell, so he killed this General John Pershing, he killed 49 of them, and he let one of them go so that they could tell all the other Muslims that 49 of your comrades are all going to hell because they were killed and dumped in a place, and the pig parts and whatever were poured over them, and that they were going to all go to hell because of that. And so if you want to stop Muslims, you got to be tough with them. And what is it giving? What is he telling them? I mean, I know it sounds like a crazy story, and it's not a true story, but he told it as if it was a true story. But this tells you the level of anger and hatred and just, the Islamophobia. We talk about, the people who want to dehumanize and attack Islam and Muslims. They're willing to resort to saying anything, to accusing us of anything, to saying anything is possible. And I'll just end, I'm going to end now. I'm going to just also talk about just one meme. Again, that you oftentimes see on right-wing websites. And again, talking just about the dehumanization of Muslims. And again, I don't know how many of you have seen this, but it's very popular in right-wing circles. So they show the evolution of man and the evolution of Islam. So you've all seen probably those posters where it shows an ape kind of evolving into an upright human being, okay? So they took that one step further, and then they showed that ape that was standing was now bowing in ruku'ah and then bowing down in sujood. And they were saying this is the evolution, that they started off as animals and they basically end as animals. Where is a lot of this coming from? Inshallah, the next two speakers will give you a little bit more information. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakumullah khair, Brother Uthman. Our next speaker is someone who needs no introduction. We all know him and we all love him and respect him. He is Nihed Awad, who is the executive director and co-founder of CARE. CARE, as you all know, is the largest nonprofit Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization in the United States. You've all seen him on many, many news outlets and news media outlets and giving interviews. He's also been very, very integral with the assistance of people like Zahra in helping filing lawsuits to protect our rights as Muslims. So, Brother Nihad, please join us.
Thank you, Brother Manjid. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The title of this session said, Hidden Links. Really? Okay. I don't believe there is any hidden link between the network of the Islamophobia and many Zionist organizations. I'm sure if you dig deeper in the research, you will find some of the hidden inner links between many groups. But it has been very obvious to me as an activist, as a leader of CARE, along with my colleagues nationwide who have been fighting Islamophobia and anti-Palestinian and anti-Arab bigotry for the past couple and a half decades. We have seen this before our eyes. And that connection should not be missed. But also, we need to understand how substantial that relationship between major groups who support the State of Israel and support the Islamophobia network. In fact, some of them are the same. And the impact of their efforts on misinformation, distraction, and policy making. In fact, Islamophobia has been the bedrock of anti-Muslim sentiment in the United States and the anti-Muslim policies that we have seen at home and abroad. And several Jewish organizations have poured tens of millions of dollars into supporting anti-Muslim bigoted individuals and organizations. You will be surprised to see and hear the figures, especially the ones who just attended the fundraising for AMP. We managed to get how much? $400,000? And Dr. Osama really worked the room to get $400,000 to support the main organization that's dedicated on behalf of the community to advance the cause of justice for Palestine in the United States. Now, when you see these figures now, money given to other organizations not supporting their own organizations. For example, the Jewish Communal Fund poured $3 million into the Islamophobia network between 2014 and 2016. The reason this date is a little bit old is because we have to wait for nonprofit organizations and companies to file their 990s, and sometimes does not appear on search except 1 or 2 years later. But that is a rhythm that you see that has been repeated and it did not stop. Jewish Community Foundation poured between $200,000 to $400,000 into the network between 2014 and 2016. The Jewish Community Federation of San Francisco, the Peninsula, and the Marin, Sonoma counties poured more than $400,000 into the network of Islamophobia in 2016. The Edelson Family Foundation poured more than $6 million into the Islamophobia network in those 2 years. The foundation has given $1 million for the Committee for Accuracy in Middle East Reporting, which is called, it is a Boston-based organization that propagates ads against Palestinian people and the Arab world, and they always purchase like quarter of a page and sometimes one full page in some cheap newsletters, but it goes nationwide. If you visit our website, Islamophobia.org, which alhamdulillah we own and CARE manages, you will see shocking, for those who are really seeking the truth, they will see shocking tens of millions, in fact, it topped $100 million that major Jewish and community organizations have been pouring into the Islamophobia network to misinform the public about the Muslim community. The Clarion Fund, which has an outlet based in occupied Palestine, during the campaign of Obama, President Obama in 2006, they supplied newspapers and purchased ads, which means they can put a film called The Obsession, Radical Islam's War on the West. They managed to stuff it in newspapers and distribute it to 28 million people. It claimed that Obama was practicing Muslim, and therefore voters should not vote for him because he's a secret Muslim. They spent about $56 million on this project just to scare the public from voting for Barack Obama. So the link is very clear. However, there have been some very known individuals, and I will name some of them because, alhamdulillah, they have been fading away both physically and politically, such as Stephen Emerson. Stephen Emerson is the president and founder of the Investigative Project on Terrorism. He claimed to be an expert on terrorism, but he's known for his bigoted sentiment towards Muslims and Arabs. For example, in 1995, immediately after the Oklahoma City bombing, on CBS network, he blamed Arabs, Middle Easterners, for being behind the bombing. Stephen Emerson is known to send spies, maybe including in this gathering, to infiltrate communities, including our organization and our community organizations nationwide. He recruits Muslims, Arabs, and people of other convictions or no convictions to spy on the community. He misquotes them, and he recycles this and sells it to networks of bigoted organizations who do not have access like he does to the Muslim community. So he has thrived on misquoting people and being inaccurate. Fox News hired him as a commentator because he plays the same game. He tells them what they like to hear. So one day on CBS News, he claimed that Muslims in Birmingham, Britain, and he described Birmingham as a Muslim no-go zone, that it is controlled by Sharia. So obviously, Fox News was very embarrassed by having someone coming on their national network to spread falsehood about the Muslim population in Europe. The Prime Minister of Britain then called him a complete idiot. Fox News had to drop him. So this guy and his organization have been spying on the Muslim community nationwide, and he's been accused by many for working for the Israeli intelligence. Daniel Pipes, what some people call him the father of Islamophobia, the intellectual father of Islamophobia. He has many bigoted views towards Muslims. He described the Muslim population in Europe as immigrants, foreigners who migrated to Europe, who brought strange habits and strange food. If this has been said about any other minority, he will immediately be called out for his bigoted statement. He believed that the only solution between the Palestinians and the Israelis is for the Israelis to wipe out the Palestinians. Daniel Pipes has been funneling many organizations who have been attacking Muslims, and also he has been funding several people who have been suing the Muslim community. Luckily, he is no longer seen on national television, and I'll tell you why. Pamela Geller, who is also a known Zionist, has led the charge against the Islamic Community Cultural Project in New York after 9/11, what they call Ground Zero Mosque. She's a known supporter and believer of Zionism, but she has galvanized Islamophobia nationwide with her campaign. And she has been well funded by many Jewish and right-wing organizations. And just to conclude, in addition to these individuals, you have John Guandolo, who claimed to be an expert on terrorism, but also he has been making or competing by saying some ridiculous statements against Muslims to justify funding. Today, brothers and sisters, with our collective effort, alhamdulillah, and our persistence as CARE and our partner organizations, including AMP, over the years, we have managed to neutralize Stephen Emerson, Daniel Pipes, Pamela Geller, and John Guandolo. They're not seen, they're not invited by any mainstream organization or network or even Congress or national network, because when we see that they are there, we speak out. And that's how they treated our Muslim community. Whenever they see a Muslim leader, a Muslim organization, they rally support to make sure that our voices are silenced. But to conclude, while these minor, I call them minor players, have been fading away from the scene and have lost momentum and credibility over the years because we have organized and spoken against them, alhamdulillah. However, Islamophobia has become more mainstream. Islamophobia today has more major actors. Islamophobia today has sitting members of Congress, like Lauren Podet, who described Ilhan Omar just a few days ago as a suicide bomber. A former president who mobilized his base on anti-Muslim bigotry and legislated and passed executive order to ban Muslims from coming to the United States, and immediately cut relations with the Palestinians and shut down funding for the UNRWA. Islamophobia has been weaponized, has been normalized, has been elevated. And in many states, people wanted to become the law of the land by passing anti-Sharia legislation. So, yes, Islamophobia has been recognized as a major threat, not only to Muslims, but to societal peace. And many people have to stand up to condemn Islamophobia. Not only Muslims should speak up to condemn Islamophobia. Everyone who believes in decency and equality and justice for all should condemn Islamophobia. But Islamophobia today is a challenge to the entire society, not only to Muslims. And therefore, we have to be more vigilant, and we should not think that because one president, bigoted president, is gone, and we have another president who did not deliver a lot on his promises, we should not think that Islamophobia is behind us. Islamophobia is in front of us and will stay with us for generations. And we have to be more sophisticated, we have to be more proud of our faith, and we have to build alliances to fight anti-black racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and any form of bigotry in the United States if we want to survive. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Nihad, and on behalf of AMP, we are, of course, your partner in battling Islamophobia anywhere we find it. Whatever we can do, we will support CARE and you, of course, Brother Nihad. Our next speaker is Sister Zahra Bidlo, who is the Executive Director of CARE in the San Francisco Bay Area. Many of you know that Sister Zahra has been very integral in filing lawsuits in the San Francisco Bay Area through CARE that help the Muslim community there where they face some discrimination, whether it's at work, whether it's the FBI interviews, whether it's, airport harassment, what have you. She's been a very, very vital key component to those lawsuits, and mashallah, very successful. So I'll have Sister Zahra Billo join us, and I believe she will talk to us about combating Islamophobia, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. As the only woman on this panel, I feel the intense pressure to be on time, to be proud of being a lawyer, even though they don't want to be associated with our career and field, and to get you to be a little bit louder. Assalamu alaikum. Many of you know me through my work at CARE. It is where I have spent the bulk of my career striving to protect and empower American Muslims. But American Muslims for Palestine holds a special place in my heart. As a young girl, I grew up in a home with Pakistani immigrants who took pride in our history, who took pride in their immigration story. And though they themselves were not from Palestine, they watched the news breaking about Palestine on a nearly daily basis. They raised us to care for this special place. They taught us that because we are Muslims, this is our cause. Because we are Muslims, this place holds a special place in our heart. It is a human rights issue. It is a religious issue. It is a moral issue. But I never knew what I could do. We would send our money to Palestine, we would pray for the people in Palestine, and we would watch the news. That was until I learned about AMP and AMP's work. A few years ago, I had the special honor of visiting Palestine at the invitation of AMP. And what I saw shook me to my core, first and foremost because I understood that many of my own Palestinian brothers and sisters could not take the trip that I was taking. They were turned away at the border when, though I was interrogated and delayed, I was able to come in. My blue American passport and my Pakistani heritage gave me more access to that land than the Palestinians who are from there themselves. And so when asked, why do I support AMP? Why do I support this work? It's because AMP connects the dots. AMP gives us the tools that we need to fight the oppression. AMP says, enough putting Band-Aids on the problem, let's fight the root causes. And that's what this conversation is about. The connection between Islamophobia and Zionism. I want to underscore first and foremost that as Muslims, Islamophobia is not something we've been dealing with for 10 years or 20 years. It's something that we've been dealing with for hundreds of years. From the moment that our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, introduced his message to his community, people opposed him. People opposed him, people were violent against him, they dehumanized him, they boycotted him, and the Muslims were unsafe. But over and over again, they turned to their faith and they emerged victorious. So these conversations are heavy, but they are not unprecedented. It can feel difficult at times, but we have a history of winning. We don't have a history of being richer or more powerful necessarily. We have a history of winning because we have Allah on our side. So when you hear what we are saying and you think about the millions of dollars and the big organizations and the networks, remember that we have a history of winning and that we have been doing that and we will continue to do that. I want to underscore what Brother Atta said, which was that at the root of this is a dehumanization of our communities. Muslims are not good enough. Arabs are not good enough. Palestinians don't believe in peace. They teach their children violence. If they would just stop fighting, then everything would be okay. We know that that's not true. We know that it's a talking point, that they dehumanize us to advance their agenda. Brother Atta reminded us of that. Brother Nihad reminded us that this is not a hidden connection. All of you in this room, and hopefully everyone within 6 degrees of separation from you, knows that Islamophobia is a well-funded conspiracy, a well-funded project to marginalize us, to imprison us, to deport us, to silence us. And they do it because they're afraid of what we will do. They're afraid of our message. They're afraid of our advocacy. They know that Muslims fight for Black Lives Matter. They know that Muslims fight for police accountability. They know that Muslims fight against homelessness and poverty. They know that Muslims care for the environment. And most importantly, they know what my parents taught us, that Muslims fight for Palestine, that Muslims will fight for a free Palestine, and so they must come after us. Many of us on this stage and many of your colleagues in nonprofit organizations are professional fundraisers. I spend more of my time asking for money than I do lawyering, which makes me a little bit jealous of the more traditional lawyers. I'm going to people and I'm saying, can you write that check? Can you give me your credit card number? 100, 500, 1,000, 10,000. And we work and we sweat and we work for $100,000 here, $200,000 here. And then we hear about what the Islamophobia industry is spending. Brother Nihad gave us specific examples, tens of millions of here, tens of millions there. What we're talking about is hundreds of millions of dollars spent on dehumanizing our community with the agenda of silencing us, pushing us out, repressing us, killing our hope, which is why I started with the reminder that we win, and we continue to win, because if we lose our hope, they win. That's what they spend the money on. Growing up post 9/11, for a brief period of time, I thought that if we could just fight Islamophobia in the United States and disregard the foreign issues, maybe we'd make some advances. If I could get my Jewish and Christian brothers in the United States to just understand why I eat halal meat and I pray 5 times a day, then maybe I would be safer. And what we lost sight of in that conversation was that our opposition was out organizing us. Our opposition wasn't making a distinction between domestic and international. To them, Muslims here or abroad, Palestinians here or abroad, Arabs here or abroad, people of conscience here or abroad are a threat to them. So we have to stop making that distinction. We have to connect the dots. The organizations that promote Zionist agendas, materials, marketing, and legislation are the same ones that want to ban Muslims, are the same ones that want to pass anti-Sharia legislation. The police officers in the United States who kill unarmed black men, women, and children are trained by the Israeli military. The technology that is used at the US-Mexico border is the same technology used at the apartheid wall. We have to make these connections, because if we don't, they are doing it anyways. When we talk about Islamophobia, we think oftentimes about the vehement fascists, the ones that Brother Nihad reminded us of, the Daniel Pipes, the Stephen Emersons, the Pamela Gellers. But I also want us to pay attention to the polite Zionists, the ones that say, let's just break bread together. We oppose a Muslim ban in the United States, but we cannot support Palestinian human rights. We need to pay attention to the Anti-Defamation League. We need to pay attention to the Jewish Federation. We need to pay attention to the Zionist synagogues. We need to pay attention to the Hillel chapters on our campuses, because just because they're your friend today doesn't mean that they have your back when it comes to human rights. So oppose the vehement fascists, but oppose the polite Zionists too. They are not your friends. They will not be there for you when you need them. They will take your friendship and throw your Palestinian brothers and sisters under the bus. Oh, you get along because you're all in Girl Scouts together? Talk to them about what is happening in Palestine and see how that conversation goes. And so when we think about Islamophobia and Zionism, let's be clear about the connections. There is no difference between domestic policy and foreign policy when it comes to our human rights. There is no difference between domestic policy and foreign policy when it comes to those who seek to target us. And so when we do our work here in the US, we have to work together, because they're working with or without us. Now, how do you fight back? Know your friends. Who actually has your back? Know that you can call American Muslims for Palestine. And by the way, you should be a monthly donor to American Muslims for Palestine. Build it into your budget and forget about it. Make it your monthly contribution, because you're contributing to the apartheid monthly. It is a part of your budget. You are paying your taxes, so you should be giving money to AMP monthly. Know your friends. Know that you can call CARE. If you face a boycott or legislation or something where you are being targeted for your views, know that you can call CARE, where you should also, by the way, be a monthly donor, because we will support you. We will file the lawsuit on your behalf, and we will not charge you. Know your JVP leadership, your SJP leadership, your If Not Now leadership. The list goes on. Know who is on your side. Build community with them. Because the next thing I'm going to tell you is to know your enemies. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that. They are your enemies. There are organizations and infrastructures out there who are working to harm you. Make no mistake of it. They would sell you down the line if they could. And they very often do behind your back. I mean the Zionist organizations. I mean the foreign policy organizations who say they're not Zionist but want a two-state solution. I'm not a Palestinian myself, but it's my understanding that that is laughable. So know your enemies. And because it's the last time I'll talk to you this Saturday, let me just tell you also, know the Muslim organizations that are out to harm you. Know the Muslim organizations that are not holding to their principles, and hold them accountable, because they're doing it in your name. In some ways, they are worse than the Zionists, because at least the Zionists will tell you what they're out for. But when Muslim organizations sell you out, they're doing it in your name. Be principled. Be principled and consistent. We are fighting for a free Palestine. That is eyes on the prize. That is the goal. If you have to give up anything along the way, that's not the right fight. You are fighting for a free Palestine. Never trade short-term wins for long-term losses. You think it's convenient today to do something, but you're harming the cause of Palestine? That's not the route you want to go. It may look appealing, it may look attractive, you may get a great photo opportunity, you may get an incredible donation, but that was a short-term win and you lost on the long-term cause. Never sell others out. If what you will do will harm the cause, it's not the right thing to do. Never sell others out. Someone wants to organize against Palestine with you. Someone says, oh, that organizer's really rowdy. You know, maybe we'll do it a different way. That's not the route for us. We're in this together. And then, eyes on the prize. Allah has promised us victory. We know from our history. We've seen the incremental progress we have made even since the last in-person convention. If 2 Novembers ago we had said that dozens of members of Congress would support the cause of Palestine, that millions of people would march in the streets in a pandemic, that media outlet after media outlet would cover this cause, we may have had some doubts, but we know that victory is in the cards for us. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Zahra. And she's absolutely right. Normalization has no space with us. We will not normalize, nor will we respect those who do. Now, I have some shocking news, which is you have 3 lawyers on this panel, and we finished on time. Can you believe this? But unfortunately, we will not have time for Q&A. Unfortunately, our next session will be starting here in about 5 minutes. It is 16 years of boycott, divestment, and sanctions, the movement that changed the game. And our speakers will be Paula Roderick and Rebecca Levin. So please stay here. It will be starting in just a few minutes. Jazakumullah khair.